Small businesses often have a different perspective than larger companies. We talked with a very experienced founder about his innovative way to take back the internet from tech giants when it comes to ad servers. Committed to driving ad revenue without compromising on security or user experience, Kevel is here to offer a better alternative for everyone.
How often now does somebody send you an article and it's behind a paywall? And to me, that's just a failure of the advertising model. And I have a passion for what the internet is and that it's, free to use, and no matter where you are in the world or your economic background, you can find amazing, diverse sets of information and ideas on the internet. That information should be free. And that's what advertising can make possible. My name is James Avery, and I'm the founder and the CEO of Kevel.
Kevel is his latest venture, but James Avery is what we like to call a serial founder. Founding startups left and right, racking up lots of experience and advice to share. So, what is Kevel and the story behind its creation?
I was a software engineer and kind of fell into running this small vertical ad network. So the idea of it was, myself and a number of other bloggers kind of banded together to sell advertising to people in our industry. So we were in the kind of Microsoft .NET developer space. I was kind of running this small ad network just like on the side, right? Like you'd call it like an indie hacker or something like that these days, right? Had my day job and was kind of moonlighting running this small ad network. And that's kind of how I ended up learning, about advertising in general. And over time, I realized that the software was a much more compelling business than the ad network. And I thought I could actually take that software and turn it into like a full-time job. And that's kind of the origins of Kevel. This is back in 2010, 2011. Started it back then really with a focus on, almost more kind of banner ads and traditional advertising. But over time really morphed into what we are today, which is an API platform that enables companies to build their own ad platforms. I'm really passionate about building the systems that enable companies to be like prosperous internet businesses. And that kind of without someone like us, it makes it a lot harder, and you might end up just making all your money from Google or Facebook, and then you're kind of at the whims of these platforms, and Google traditionally takes a large chunk of the revenue, makes it hard to be a traditional publisher.
How did you get into the startup advisor space? And how has that affected you as a founder?
I got into it because there was an accelerator starting in Durham by a friend of mine, Chris Hively. It's called Startup Factory, and he invited me to come be an advisor. And that's where I learned that actually the most valuable you can be as an advisor is if you lived what they're living a couple years ago, right? Because it's relevant, you have enough perspective so that how things went. And then I think you can really be a lot more helpful. I also think that a key part of being an advisor is just relating experiences versus telling them what to do. And I think a lot of times that's a newer kind of convention. A lot of times if you have somebody who did something 20 years ago, they're just gonna be well, I did X, Y, Z, and you should do this, or I've heard this TikTok thing, why don't you guys look into that? Whereas it's so much more useful to just say, 2 years ago when I was fundraising, here's what I did. Here's what worked. Here's what didn't work. Here's when I cried myself to sleep, and here's when I was really happy, and relate the experiences and kind of what you learned as opposed to just trying to tell them what to do. So I think there's definitely it's a sliding scale, and then I look for, advisors and people who are a couple years ahead of me, right?
Do you have any more advice for other entrepreneurs?
Number one thing I always tell people is to read and learn more. Be voracious in how you kind of go consume information, but also be wary about, just taking advice from Twitter and short blog posts, right? There's great books out there that really take the approach of saying, here's how great companies are run, right? Or here's things that you can really learn and dig deep on a topic. Go read all of those. As opposed to sometimes I feel there's off the cuff little wisdom people try to get from whatever they read on Twitter or a blog post. I think 7 Powers is a great business strategy book, where I think a lot of people when they go set out to run a company, and if they don't, have an MBA or something like that, they don't really think about like what are the choices, like what is my long-term, strategic, advantage going to come from. And yeah, you can't do all that today, but it's really good to be thinking about those things early on. I think it can help you really avoid, early mistakes.